Right. I'm going to get started with some introductions as everyone comes in one by one. And Ciaran, if it's okay, I'm going to get cracking. So thank you to everybody that's joining us. I can see people from around the world. We've got a real treat for everybody today. We're talking about designing an alumni launch for day one success, which is something that Investec did phenomenally at the end of last year. So what's the context for today? Launching a corporate alumni program is a really exciting opportunity, but we believe that true success requires meticulous planning, cross-functional alignment, and the right strategic priorities from day one. So for those looking to build a program and activate their community, learning from those who've trodden that path is essential. Today, joining us, we're really lucky to have Ciaran Whelan. Ciaran is sponsor of Investec's alumni program and has held various senior positions in the Investec group since he joined in 1988, including as Chief Executive of Investec Wealth and Investment in the UK, Group Chief Operating Officer, Chief Executive of Investec Bank in Australia, and latterly Global Head of Investec Private Bank. Couple of stats just to set some context before we go into the questions. This is the first formal corporate alumni network launched on the African continent. And of course, Investec has just been celebrating its 50th anniversary with about 20,000 alumni out there in the world. Ciaran, I wonder if we could just start with a little bit of background. Perhaps you can talk to us about what motivated you to champion an alumni program for Investec.
Thank you, Emma, and good evening, everybody that's listening. I think, first of all, I would like to change the narrative about establishing it for day one success. That's not what we have tried to do. I'm delighted that it worked out like that, but that's not what we tried to do. We wanted to set up an alumni program that would last for a very, very long time. The fact that Emma tells us we were successful on day one, we will take that as a compliment. I don't know whether it was a success or not, because it's the first time I've ever been involved in one of these things. So I don't know what the benchmarks are. So I'll take it from the experts.
Your goals. It was your goals, how many in the community, jobs? I mean, we're judging it by you, but yes, from our standards too, it was radically successful, but very, very modest.
No, it's the truth. It's the truth.
And so can you talk to us about why you decided to champion this? Why did this get off the ground? Because it's something that had been discussed for a little while. I know that we mentioned just now that the 50th anniversary was pending when you were thinking about this, but can you talk to us about why it was the right time for you to do this at Investec?
Because we had been messing around for many, many, many years and did nothing on an alumni program. And we just happened to be 50 years old last year. So the two are not necessarily connected at the start and were run independently. Because I had spare time, I decided to champion setting up an alumni program. Because Investec is 50 years old, well, let me change that. We were very old, not just 50. It wasn't because it was 50. And people are what is the most important thing that we have in our business. And we have many people who have been through organization and who have left, most of them on a very good basis. And one of our values, our key value, is our people. And we were completely ignoring this opportunity that we could leverage in terms of creating an alumni program. But also, it's not just about business opportunities. It is about living up to our values of treating our people as our family. And just the fact that you have left us doesn't mean that we can ignore you. So we've been messing around on it for many, many, many years. And we've really done nothing. So we decided in late 2023 that we should do this properly once and for all. And then it just happened to be our 50th birthday in 2024. And that's when the launch was to be. So we thought, well, it makes sense that we leverage off of all of the money that was being spent on our 50th birthday party celebrations so that we could not just talk about the past, but about the future for all of the people who've helped us make a success of our business during our 50 years in existence. And the alumni program was the way that we thought was the best way to do that. And therefore, we killed many birds with one stone. So that's where it came from, really.
Yeah,
There's
so the
no
time
science about it, and there's no Harvard learning about it. It was as simple as that.
timing was serendipitous, and I love that, treating your alumni as family. That's absolutely, that's what's at the heart of this. Could you talk to us a little bit about whether there were competing priorities or competing stakeholders? Because quite often alumni starts in HR, sometimes it starts in marketing or business development, sometimes it's an office of the CEO job. Of course, you have some breadth and some oversight over large parts of the business. Can you talk to us about whether it started in one place, whether you brought everyone together, and just the kinds of people that made up the team that helped get this live and helped with your thinking initially?
Well, the history of our failure to do it correctly is always very telling, and hopefully will help other organizations who are thinking about going down this path. Is first of all, you got to give it senior sponsorship, and you've got to give it to a very small group of people with somebody who can call the shots and make the decisions. And that's where we'd failed in the past. So, when we decided to do this and I had the time to manage it, then you can bring it together. Is there competing resources, competing competition for resources? Of course there is. But that's a really easy way to hide behind it and not do it or to fail in it. And we decided, well, we're going to do this. This is very important for us. So we allocated the funds to it. And we allocated dedicated people, not outside of my role in it, but, we have a dedicated person in SA, in our two key geographies in South Africa and in the UK. And we're not doing it off the back of or the side of somebody's bench, because that doesn't work. And particularly given the time scale that we wanted to do it within. And that's mainly because I'm an impatient person. So we dedicated proper
I
money
can
to it.
testify to that.
Yeah, and we dedicated proper resource to it. But I would say that probably one of the key to the success of it is that we went and got your own firm, Emma, Enterprise Alumni, to help us. And the principle here, there are a couple of learnings out of it. The principle is go get the help that you need on something that we don't know anything about. So, if we have a legal problem, we go to the legal experts to get it sorted. So we went to what we thought was the best in the world, as yourselves. And so now we have a partner to help us and who has got all of the history from other implementations. And you've got the systems to be able to help us, which were proven. But you've got the experience and the knowledge as well to help us. And the combination of those two worked really, really well. So that's the route we took, and that's the route we continue to take, not just launch. We are partnering with you to help us get through the next stage so that we can build a very long-term sustainable alumni program on technology that works. And we can get all of the upgrades and the improvements and wisdom that you gain from being in this industry full time. And you can help us. So the combination of all of those things made a hell of a lot of sense to us. And it proved successful so far. And we think it'll be successful going forward.
So I wonder if we could dig into something that we get a lot of questions about, and for the people that are going to be listening to this now and afterwards, which is the return on investment. I wonder if you could talk to us. I mean, like, you talk to us about alumni being family. We understand why this matters. But in terms of business value, alumni obviously has both hard and soft returns. So what were your initial plans in terms of goals for the program? Because of course, in the C-suite, you can say to yourself, it's a really important strategic relationship. We've got to be able to communicate with them. But of course, one has to justify spend typically, depending on where one sits in the organization more so. Can you give us a little bit of insight into what initially you were aiming to achieve from the program?
Well, it certainly wasn't driven by a return on investment or a formula or a fancy Excel spreadsheet that showed you if you spend this, you'll get this. That we never even went there because it doesn't make any sense to me. If you really think about it, we are an organization who are operating 2 key geographies and then several other geographies around the world. We've been around for 50 years. We've got currently about 10,000 people in our environment. We have another 15,000 people or so who have come through us and who don't work for us anymore. We are a people organization. We don't sell anything except service. So dealing with people and dealing with people internally and people as clients and prospective clients is our key to success. So the idea of not having an alumni program makes no sense to me. You don't have to go and justify it with numbers. You really don't. If you do, then you shouldn't be involved in it at all.
Well, I think you can say that, but of course, when people are realizing that it's something they need in their business, they have got to justify themselves to people that are spending the money. So what advice would you give to people who are not in your position that want to bring this to a senior sponsor and typically have to give a reasonable justification, or is that something that just hasn't crossed your mind and you're the wrong person for that advice?
If you cannot see the benefit, the soft benefits, the intangible benefits of a program like this, then you shouldn't do it. If you're driven purely by monetary returns, and if I was looking at that as an investment opportunity, I wouldn't do it because it's so uncertain. Why would you do it? So I don't think that you can reasonably drive it via an investment cash flow type analysis because all your assumptions will change over time. There's got to be a soft key reason to doing it. And you've got to believe that the ineluctable conclusion of bringing this is that it will be good for you. It'll be good for you internally, externally, and the benefits will come. And it's easier to measure some of the benefits. It's not just about getting business. It's about, attracting people to come back and work for you. Those are easier to measure than, well, why did we get this new deal? Or why did we get this new opportunity? Or, has somebody spoken better about us because they're now part of our alumni program? Those are very difficult to measure. But if you really sit back and think about it, I mean, it's got to make sense for an organization like ours.
Yeah, I mean, we know that, and obviously you now know that because I know you're going to share some anecdotes. So I wonder if we can kind of stay on that topic for a second for those people listening and say, how do you define success? What is success? We obviously know you had community size goals. Is there anything else that is on the list, or is that the sole focus for the first couple of years?
Well, some of the key priorities that we had was one, to get it launched, to get our systems in place, to be able to send out the invites to join. And we sent out about 10,000 on day one in October last year. And then to see, well, how many people would sign up for it. And there, to date, we've got about just over 1,300 signed up and another 300 or so waiting to sign up, waiting to get approved. So is that a measure of success? I don't know, but you tell me it is because you're the expert. So then we will take that with gratitude from you that it's a success. So now we've launched, and now we have people we have an alumni program who are now again more integrated into part of our Investec family. And some of the key goals for success measurement will be, well, what can we move that 1,300 to by this time next year? We have some other measurements of, integration and making it more automated. We're launching a telephone app next month, hopefully, which will make it easier for people. And some of the other measurements, and we're tracking these numbers at the moment, is how many people are we getting into the recruitment process again through the alumni program, so we can disintermediate placement agencies, and that's obviously an obvious saving immediately.
Yeah, and I mean, in many ways, you're underplaying in some ways some of the success, because you did have community-sized goals which you hit in the first day, and you did have 10 job applications by the end of the first day. So it wasn't by any means how you were defining success, but certainly, immediately there was a positive response, there was traction, there was sharing by internal and external people on socials. And I wonder in that regard whether you can talk a little bit about that, because from our perspective, one of the things that we saw with Investec is you had a really great internal launch. You did have, I know you've got a cross-functional team, you've got cross-functional buy-in, and I'd love to talk a little bit about that in a moment. But can you talk to us a little bit about what happened inside Investec to tell people that you were launching this? Because in many ways, your employees were people that carried the message of this being launched.
Yeah, so I mean, one can always do this better, and we were learning as we're going along, but helped by yourselves, obviously. So we did put a lot of effort into rolling it out internally, explaining to the different divisions what we were doing, why we were doing it. We weren't going and asking them for money, so we held all of this at head office, makes it a hell of a lot easier. And we prepped everybody, because a lot of the people that we were prepping internally would be talking to people who had left and can influence people to join up. And we created that internal excitement that this is finally going to happen after so many years and so many false starts. And when you explain to people the type of business opportunities that can come from it, then you don't have to put numbers on it, and people can understand. So I mean, it's not really a difficult concept to get your head around. If it is a difficult concept to get your head around, then I wouldn't do it. It's not. I mean, it's pretty straightforward for large organizations like ours and even bigger organizations. So we did a lot of work on that, rolling it out, explaining to people, giving them demos of what we were doing, involving them in asking for suggestions of, what would we put on the content? What would we trying to be rolling out in the first year? What benefits would people get of being a member of our alumni program? And it's not just about bringing them in for drinking sessions or speeches or whatever. It's the whole making them remember that they are still a valued part of our organization, even though they are not employed by us anymore. And putting different alumni in touch with one another so that they can help each other outside of our organization, because eventually we will get some benefit somewhere down along the line. So we did a lot of that, and then being able to tie it into the 50th birthday celebrations, we had an immediate launch pad without having to pay for anything, because it was paid for under a different program in the organization. And if you stand back and think about it, it really made it a lot more sensible and effective for us to be able to give the 50th birthday and the alumni at the same time. Because it really showed, wow, this is a great organization. You've done well in your first 50 years coming from the bottom tip of Africa. Now you're creating an alumni program, and there was a lot of celebrations and bashes around the 50th birthday, and to be able to launch the alumni, it was a great thing to be able to piggyback off of. So
yeah,
and
it
we
carries
worked that together, which was great.
It was great momentum. Although what I must share, and for some of the people listening, the learnings might be about a potential launch, about why to do this, or about just evolving their program. But one of the things that Investec and you did incredibly well was the internal launch. So in the launch week, you had internal briefings, you had a global town hall, your internal screens and your offices around the world announced it widely. And one of the things that we really saw from the outside and others saw was, of course, you had people from all corners of the business supporting it, from the CIO to marketing to HR to your global CEO to your regional CEOs. And that was one of the magical things about this, was that this was something that everybody, it felt like everybody at Investec had a vested interest. One of the challenges that a lot of people listening, either today or afterwards, will have is that quite often, how do you motivate people internally if we don't have someone of that sort of stature, who is pushing forward and saying, right, we need a cross-functional team, we need everyone to come together. Do you have any advice for how you made the kind of HR, IT, marketing, everybody who was involved? How did you get that cross-functional group together? Was it culturally, was it fairly effortless, or because it was unusual, Ciaran?
If you have a senior sponsor who is dedicated to finding a way through all of the objections that you get, and it's not just business objections, you'll get people from the system side saying, no, we can't do that, and there's a security issue, and we need a lot more time to do it. So you got to have somebody or a team that's dedicated to it, who will find a way to deal with those corporate hurdles that get thrown up all over the place. And I guess we also had another benefit in that, we had the 50th birthday, so we needed to be ready by the date those functions were set for, which was the middle of 2024, started in July. So we had to be ready, and then we had to fulfill on the promises that we made during those functions. But I think also that it depends. This may not be successful in every organization. I'm sure it won't be. But our organization, it comes back to, we look after our people, because our people is all we've got. So it was a normal add-on, rather than something like changing a brand or going into a new country or something like that. This was normal for us, that we were looking after our people. And it resonated really well with our internal current employees, as well as with the people who we wanted to get onto the alumni program, because they saw that we were reaching out. And the fact that we launched it at the big birthday celebrations, a lot of people thought, wow, look at the effort they're putting into the alumni program, when it was really, we were piggybacking off of the birthday celebration. So it worked exceptionally well, the timing. But that wasn't a pure coincidence either. We knew what we were doing, and it just made a hell of a lot of sense.
And thank you. And just a reminder for everyone here to put some questions in the Q&A if you have some. You just talked about the internal activation, and for a lot of people on the line who are not CEO of a division, but might be running a division, might be an alumni manager, might be a stakeholder. Can you, do you think that it was your involvement that led to the internal activation of your leadership team? Or is that something that was driven by HR? Was it something that was driven by marketing? What advice can you give for getting leadership engaged? Because of course, boards have got really big jobs to do. How do you make sure that alumni is on the map?
I think, like any group-wide program, it's got to be led from a senior at the top, who can cut through all of the objections that people will give you for various reasons that they have. You got to be able to cut through it, and then bring in the relevant people, like our HR people, where a big element of the alumni comes from the HR, but it is not the sole function. And our marketing people and our IT people, and are getting our business people in, and showing to our business people, well, here's the advantages of it. I can't tell you in monetary terms how much it's going to be, but they also get it. They know. So they see the benefits. And it's not just about employing people, it's about getting people that we can do more product launches and testing with, because these are people that will want to help us out because of our prior association. So people begin to see the benefits. So inclusion is always a very important part in our organization. But we also learned from the past about, big group programs that fail, be it CRM or alumni or whatever, that there's lots of people who will tell you why it can't happen, why it's a waste of time. And you just got to cut through that and do it.
Yeah.
And
yes,
that's where
you were an example of that.
Involvement. You need senior sponsorship to be able to manage and cut through those hurdles and
Yeah,
empower the team that you've got.
Yeah, we do see that as a measure of success, or rather how fast a program can move. It is that because often there's internal bureaucracy or challenges or politics or
Oh,
whatever else it might be. And of course, it's quite hard to deal with that if you don't have senior support behind you. I wondered if we could talk about some of the look. I know that you've got an amazing alumni manager that's based in Johannesburg. That's Tash, and you've got a phenomenal client relationship background leader in London called Cheryl, who have done wonderful things to make sure that this has started from day one to be embedded in your culture, and as you say, is sustainable. Can you talk to us about some of the things that have been interesting that have emerged out of Investec? So, for example, best practices emerged from Investec that we've really enjoyed watching. Naming the newsletter, which I think was that via employee submitted suggestions? Can you talk to us a little bit
brilliant.
about that?
We did go the inclusion route of trying to get as many people across our organization, not just on the alumni team, but in our businesses to help us. So, things like, well, what are we going to call this newsletter? Who are we going to invite to it? Who are we not going to invite to be part of the alumni program? Also very, very important. And what are the rules and principles that you must apply? And we bashed all of these things around internally first, and got people. Everyone had different views on lots of things, but you can listen, but you got to make a decision, and that's why you need the tight team at the center with senior sponsorship, where you can say, okay, well, we've heard 10 different answers. We got to pick one. This is what we're going with. And then to keep our other senior execs in the loop so that they are not surprised by something that we decide to do. And I think we did that really, really well. But we also, it's not as if, we suddenly decided that. We saw what didn't work in the past. If you put it in one particular area, then all they're going to focus on is their particular background and discipline. And that's not
Yes.
what our alumni program is about. It is not a HR function. It is not purely to get, as you've taught me the term, to get boomerang employees back. It is not that is one of the key benefits, but that is not the key reason we are doing it. So you've got to get the people who are, can add the value and receive the value, get them all involved, because ultimately they are the ones who are going to make it successful. They're the ones who are going to get the benefit. It's not me or our small internal team that's looking after it. It's got to be seen to come in all areas of our business. So yes, internal stakeholder involvement is exceptionally important, and it's something that I began to realize quickly as we went through it, that this was a key element of our success, of our potential success to get this thing off the road, but to establish the foundation so that we can build upon it in future. It's very easy for people to throw stones if we only had 10 people join up instead of the 800 in the first couple of days. Are we now at just under 1,400? I mean, just to add a few more points, we did
Yes.
a lot of internal pilot testing, first of all, to make sure it was going to work. We had to be very flexible. And I think probably the most important thing that I've learned throughout my career, and then you can bring it into this program, is you don't have to be 100% on day one. Because if you think you're going to get to that, then you will never launch. So, doing the best, get it as best as possible for day one, be prepared to be flexible, know what you can do in launch 2, 3, 4, and 5, but get it off the ground quickly, because then you'll build internal momentum rather than trying to build a palace on day one and get utopia on day one, which is probably where, I've seen lots of projects fail within our own organization, because we wanted utopia on day one and you never get it. And you never get it on day 2, 3, 4, or 100 either. So, let's get going, let's build it good, and then we will
Get
learn from
started.
it. Get started, get going, and then you're in a position to be able to get input from the alumni who join up. And it's amazing what they can teach us. Amazing. because they're the ones who are
Yes.
talking about it and thinking about it, hopefully good and bad. And you can hear what they've got to say, and then we can adapt ourselves to the parts we think are relevant.
And that is often a challenge in large organizations, right? I mean, we always say just get started, even if you start small, but you're absolutely right. And Ciaran, one of the things you were talking about was, and ties into some of the questions that we've received here, is you talked about inclusion of your alumni. The question was, were all your alumni invited and included in the launch, or did you segment them by where they're working now? Did you exclude competitors, which in my experience is something that only law firms and large accounting firms think about? Who was invited and who wasn't? Can you give us a little sense of that?
So it's easiest to look at as to who wasn't invited. And the principle that we employed was that we were not going to invite people who were dismissed for misconduct. That's who we decided. That was the only, as far as I remember, that was the only exclusion. And we had lots of debates around these things. So, because one of the debates was, well, what happens if we dismissed somebody for poor performance? Should they be invited or shouldn't they be? And we decided that it was the only exclusion was if you were dismissed for misconduct. And obviously, misconduct in a regulated financial services business is a very serious issue. So that's otherwise we invited everybody. That was our plan. It made it a lot easier. And there was a lot of debate over this. And of course, everybody had their views and things, but because it becomes personal. But that was the principle we did. And thankfully, there wasn't many people who were on the exclusion list in any event. So you can go around and around in circles on these things. Our view is let's make it simple and let's get going and let's see what happens.
Yes, and some people say you've got to be at our company for a year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. But of course, you have interns and students and people that are there for a short time. And I always think to myself, what's the downside? There's no state secrets effectively in an alumni network. If you want to be part of the family, why turn people down from being part of the family? And that's what we really saw with Investec, I think.
Yes, and if you try to get more prescriptive and saying, well, you have to have been here for 1 year, or if you've gone to a competitor, you can't be. Well, then if you go down that route, you better be really, really sure that you've got your databases right. And like most organizations, historic databases, it's not, I wouldn't say it's our strongest point. So, what difference does it make whether, if you put in 1 year, so if you left after 11 months, what's the difference between 11 months or 1 year? We just thought, let's keep it as simple as possible. Let's keep going. Even if people work for competitors, what difference does it make? They may be unhappy at those competitors and maybe
absolutely.
to come back. We can't try and think ahead as to what these people think. They will show their thoughts very quickly. And if they don't want to be part of their alumni because they're very happy somewhere else, well, then it's fine. They won't join up. That's okay too. It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple.
I agree. Now we've got quite a lot of questions that have come in. The second question, how does the alumni platform factor into your program? Is it primarily a vehicle to register people? How much do you use it as a focus to provide content or other things to your alumni? Well, you're obviously 3 months in, so you're just kind of quite early in your journey, but I don't know whether you've got any comments as regards that, because I know that you used to try and do things with a spreadsheet and with some events tools. Have you got any thoughts for that question?
So yes, we're only a couple of months in. Obviously, the key objective at the moment is to get our alumni program as widely known and to get it signed up, get as many people signed up as we can. And for us to learn also and to make our signing up processes a lot more efficient and to get our behind the scenes processes efficient to enable us to hopefully go from currently about 1,300 to double that this year and to get it much higher as we go along. But you must also put yourselves in the shoes of the alumni who signed up. They're going to be saying, well, what's next? So we've already issued one newsletter which was went out last week. And the commentary so far was very well received. It was very well read. And we've already got people writing into saying, thank you, they loved it and it's helped them, or giving us some advice in future. And we have a program for other rollouts during the year, and it will involve, it will involve events, it will involve further communication with them. I saw today that we are inviting people to come and join us on one of the well-being programs that we run internally for our staff, that we're now inviting our alumni to join in and to hear what the presenters have to say. And we want to help those people leverage off of the internal programs that we have. When it comes to events, you know, we sponsor the Investec Champions Rugby in Europe and South Africa. And now we're making tickets available for the final to our alumni. So there'll be lots of things like that, and we'll hopefully get the momentum going and learn what is effective, and you know, build up the program like that. So we have hopefully big goals and hopes for it, but you know, it's one every 6 months at a time. We've just gotten going, and now, but we have to keep going, and then we have to show that there is value in this program for the people, and that, you know, for those people who may have lost a bit of faith, listening to Investec talking about an alumni program for the past 20, 30 years, now hopefully they're seeing it and they're seeing the benefits to themselves personally, and that will reverberate back to our organization in many ways, and can help us to leverage off of all of the things that we can, and to help our alumni so that they remain a much more connected part of our family.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it, right? Which is this has enabled you to be very, very broad. You're able to connect with the diaspora, whereas a lot of these things were done in small pockets or individually, or with people that lived in the capital city. And this way, it's inclusive both in terms of the types of alumni, how long they spent at you, but also where they are, because people have retired, people have moved. I know that you are only 3 months in, so this is very fresh. But one of the questions that we've got here is, can you give us some examples of what you've either learned or are hoping to learn from alumni that has helped Investec?
What have we learned from the alumni that can help us with the program? I think a lot of the feedback is, one, we have learned that people value this type of engagement with them. And we have used that to feed back into our own organization, so that you can allay the naysayers who existed on the sidelines, and then get them to get our business people to say, okay, wow, this actually makes a lot of sense. I might not have understood it while I was supportive. I didn't understand how powerful it can be. And our internal people will now engage more fully, which will, you know, increase that whole circle of support for this type of program. So we've got lots of ideas from people about, you know, can you have this type of event? Can you help us with this? How can we get in touch? We've had people come to us and say, you know, I'm now in this type of business and these are the products we sell. Can you get me an intro into your organization? Because I think it could be of value to us. Now, that's fantastic from both sides. For us, because we get exposure to, you know, potential services that may help us or our people. It's good for our alumni, for their businesses that they're in. And we can put them in touch with other alumni who may have a similar need for such type of services or products. So yeah, but it's you know, it's early days, but there's a lot of momentum and a lot of excitement and a lot of gladness that we are where we are, and you know, where we can take it, and you know, together with yourselves, because you see what is going on in other firms in the industry, and that's why we've signed up for another year of your consulting advice as a partner to us, and we benefit from what you're doing and what you're seeing in other organizations. Obviously, lockdown confidentiality is very important for you, which you adhere to, but you do give us a lot of help. And, you know, we are not reinventing the wheel, and that's why we went to someone like yourself. Let's go get the people to help us.
And
Rather
we
than,
really value your partnership. Thank you. Yes, I mean,
well,
look,
it's a
sometimes we can
partner.
save you time. We can, you know, from our learnings, we can help you to move faster. And really, I think that's been absolutely crucial here. Ciaran, a final question. Investec is often seen as a leader in Africa. Have you had a sense of how curating this pool of strategic relationships is being received within other companies? You know, we know that there are always lots of launches out of the US in banks and all other businesses in the UK and France, but rarely locally. Is this something that you've had good feedback about? Because I think Investec, the name, part of your history is about being forward thinking and leveraging the best of technology.
Well, I would confine it at the moment to South Africa, and you know, we've had other organizations in South Africa because there's not many alumni programs in organizations that's done on a, you know, a systematic process like we have. And we've got good questions from some of those people saying, oh, can you teach us what have you done and why have you done it and how did you do it? So, you know, we would obviously take that as a compliment. But on the rest of the African continent, not so much yet, because we don't play as big a role in the rest of the continent as we do in South Africa and in the UK and Europe. But I think that it's a great sign of success when people say, oh, can you tell me how you've done it? And it's also important for our Investec brand because, you know, we are a lot younger than many of our competing financial institutions in South Africa or in the UK. And for us to be on the front foot with something like this, and the fact that it backs up the values that we talk about, and as I say, our people are our key value. And it's easy to say that, but to manage and to implement it over so many years is a great challenge. And something like this says, yeah, Investec, you are doing what you wrote on the tin. So it's great to see you do that. You're on the front foot. It's almost like, oh, it's a new innovative trading top product. Oh, gee, Investec did it first. Now we've done something like this. So we are very pleased with the reaction of our competitors and even other organizations who are not our competitors who have reached out to us. They may be our clients from a banking point of view or a wealth point of view. And they say, wow, it's good to see what you've done. Can you help us? And that's part of the value that we can add.
Yes. Ciaran, it's been the worst technical experience that we could possibly have had. I am so sorry. Our entire building and road are doing with it. So you have done very well. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And we're here to answer any questions, and we work together. As you've stressed, it's a partnership. So it's great.
Thank you. Thank you, Ciaran, and thank you. And to be continued.